If you want your questions answered during a live stream every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I do a live stream that lasts as long as the questions do. Hope to see you there. The purpose of my content is to help the average individual realize that you can reach financial freedom, make work completely optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. But this video, why you need to retire as soon as possible, is something that I don't think I understood before I retired. I'm not sure I'll be able to explain it well enough for you to understand. But I call this the math of time. I want you to understand 2 different years of my life. The first year was the year before I retired, 2021. I was working 50 or 60 hours a week. I had a little bit of a commute. If you looked at an average day, 24 hours, I worked 8 to 10 hours, hour commute, clean the house, work out, shop, all that kind of stuff. On a good day, when I was super lucky, I might have had 5 hours that was mine. 5 hours, and this is why I don't think most people understand this, where I was exhausted, where I don't know how I had the energy to save and invest in those hours, which is what I had to do. But most people have the energy, like I did most of my life, to hold a remote or hold a gaming mouse, because it's 5 hours where you are exhausted, where work took your energy, life took your energy. And so when we talk about retiring earlier, I say something irritating like, you need to retire as soon as possible. Like I know how to do your life. I barely know how to do mine. But I say, you need to retire as soon as possible because you can't see the other side of the equation. When you have 5 exhausted hours, 5 hours where you're wiped out and you're thinking, why would I retire early? I barely have the energy to hold a remote. Imagine if I had to fill an entire day and all I could do is hold a remote, probably fall asleep between each episode. Because there ain't no way you'd watch a 10-hour movie, but 10 hours in a binge of Game of Thrones or something flies by like you don't even know it. So why retire? Because it's how the year 2023 looked, the year after I retired. And what it looks like now is I'm in Thailand for months and I haven't booked a return flight yet. I'll go home eventually. I'll go to Vegas in February for the one rental at a time event, but between now and then, I don't just have 5 hours a day because I don't have the commute. I don't have the 8 to 10 hours of work. I still sleep, still work out, not enough. I still do life, but I have not if I'm lucky 5 hours, but at a minimum 15 hours. Minimum 15 hours a day that are mine, where I'm not exhausted, where I haven't been tired in years, where I have the energy to scuba dive, ride a jet ski, get on a plane and go to another country, figure out how their food system works. I don't know what you call it here, but they have a conveyor belt system. Some of these restaurants are amazing. That's the biggest threat when traveling is gaining weight. But those 15 hours to do anything I want can be spent at a job. If you don't need it, life is a lot better when you have options. But for me, the math of time shows me that those 15 hours can be spent doing something I love. Like going around and telling parents that your kids are screaming, and if you hold their head under for 90 seconds, not very long, just 90 seconds, the screaming will go away. But what would you do if you had energy and you had the time that you can barely imagine having now? Because when you're trapped in the day-to-day grind of having a job and a schedule and an alarm clock and a commute and a boss and coworkers and compliance and customers and all of those things that come with having to sell your life 1 hour at a time, can you even imagine how amazing life can be when you have the options because you took the time to put money to work so you don't have to? Yes, for those people who are so inconceivably boring at life, you can still have a job if you can't think of ways to fill your time. Because a job is never filling your time, it's killing your time. And there's somebody out here like me, sitting on the rooftops, screaming as loud as we can, that there's another way. That if you put your money to work, you can build a life worth living where you have memories of not the afternoon or not the moment, but a string of moments that represent years of freedom. If you wait to retire when you're in your 70s, the math of time isn't going to matter as much. Those 15 hours where you might not be exhausted, Everything hurts. I learned that on an Alaskan cruise, which I'm taking in June of this year. There'll be a link in the comments below. There's a link in the description of every one of my videos. The Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person cruise, which is on a Norwegian ship leaving from Seattle, going to Alaska. But on that first cruise that I took, as I was reaching financial freedom and starting to take vacations, which I didn't do for 8 years, I started to see how many people retired late. Or maybe weren't even retired, they were just spending their life savings on a trip. But they couldn't leave the ship. They couldn't get on the tender. They couldn't go down the ramp without a wheelchair. Because they waited so long for the math of time to matter to where they got their time back that they couldn't enjoy it. Imagine, if you retire young enough to enjoy your time, if you put your money to work so you have your time, what kind of life would you build? What do you see yourself doing? And then the takeaway, the most important thing to me, and not everybody's going to do this, and not everybody has to, but if a few of us do, when you climb the mountain, the decade, the 5 years of stock, but the decade of putting money to work, picking an asset class, creating your own cash flow, or your 4% rule, or your crypto strategy, or whatever's going to work for you. But when you can put money to work, and you don't have to work anymore, and you get to the summit of the mountain where you see that it's a plateau of a life sentence of freedom, the rest of your life, literally forever for you, you never have to work again. Now you can. I'm not gonna, but you can. What I want you to do is stand on the plateau, turn around, put your hand out, find somebody behind you. Maybe it's a group of somebodies. Maybe it's people who watch your content. Maybe it's your friends and family that see the life that you're living and see how amazing it can be. And that gives them the motivation to finally take action and stop complaining about how everything sucks and actually putting their money to work. You can still complain when you're financially free. What's the saying? Much easier to cry in a Bentley than in a broken down Toyota. Not that I recommend buying a Bentley. That's not where financial freedom comes from. But that's an option you have if you take the decade to put your money to work. Again, this is a nice short video for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I do a video that lasts as long as the questions do. She's avoiding the camera. How fast can you run? Come here, give me a kiss, fool. Sometimes the questions you ask on a Tuesday is going to be the questions somebody else didn't even think to ask, or somebody like me didn't even think to make content about, and you could be the reason someone else reaches financial freedom. Have a day full of amazing. I'm gonna. Ciao. Unless my wet fingers can't turn my phone off. Now I'll hit end.